The recent headlines say it all.
Hate crimes rise 10% amid surge in anti-gay and transgender attacks.
UK LGBT hate crime makes shocking reading.
Religious hate crime offences in the UK on the rise.
Hate crimes double in 5 years in England and Wales.
Us Brits have never hated each other quite so much. Or at least, that's what the latest Home Office hate crime statistics and campaigners would have us believe. But don't be fooled. Sometimes things really aren't what they seem. The obsession with so-called hate crimes has seen a deranged broadening and loosening of boundaries around what can be criminalised as hate. Hate crimes can be logged without a shred of evidence as long as someone, somewhere, anonymously if required, merely perceives a motive of ill will against a social group. A two-tier justice system sees that harsher punishments are more likely to be meted out to, you guessed it, hate crimes. But crime is crime, and all of it is bad. But seriously, we really are not as divided as you imagine.
I think that there is a point here, Michelle, and I'm sometimes a bit troubled by the inconsistency of the way the figures are compiled, what's included, do we have online, and do we treat that in the same way as we treat physical assault and so on. But I think that simply saying this, you know, there's nothing here, move along...
That's not what I said.
Well, OK, but I don't think that the way that you set it out seems to me completely right. Perhaps what we ought to be recognising with these figures, whether we like the detail of them or not, is that in contrast to the old days, where if somebody abused you, if you're a woman or you were black, what you tended to do was basically not say anything to anybody, not complain, because to some extent that's what they're like, or, you know, nobody will believe me and so on. Surely what these figures are telling us is that actually more people are willing to stand up for themselves and call them out. And I think that has to be a good thing in a diverse society, that actually we have a better idea of when and how this kind of hatred or abuse or assault is taking place. We can argue about the detail, but surely it must be right that we know what's going on.
Absolutely, and before I bring someone else in, just to be absolutely clear, my point is not, nothing to see here, everyone, do what you want, move along. That's not my point. My point is that I believe this narrative of hate crime is almost now become a political tool to create and nurture and embed organisations that are financially profiting from this kind of narrative. I feel that the statistics are misleading us in terms of how bad this situation really is. I believe that it's almost become, as I've just said, almost a political weapon. You look at things like Brexit. Brexit is regarded as this thing that's unleashed this xenophobic thing across our our country, and I don't believe it. I do not believe. And if you actually, before I expand this, if you look at the crime survey across England and Wales, who actually goes out and talks to people that are victims of crime, those statistics actually show the opposite, and they show that genuine hate crimes, which absolutely we should be investigating, that's in decline over the last decade.
I feel this is a classic case, Michelle, of you wanting to say that there's no racism and hate, and so why don't we stop measuring it? And then it will have gone away.
Before you expand, I really need to correct you. That is not... It would make me some kind of imbecile to suggest that there is not racism in this country. There's absolutely racists out there doing things that they need to be taken to task for and punished.
I just want to let you hear from an MP, Tanmanjeet Singh Desi, who has pointed out how existential racism has become in our political times.
When will the Prime Minister finally apologise for his derogatory and racist remarks? Racist remarks, Mr. Speaker, which have led to a spike in hate crime.
Nick, I hear you saying that this is not what the topic's about. It is, because there's a narrative here, which I feel Michelle's touching on, and you mentioned in your intro, which is that hate crimes can be just someone in their head deciding that they've experienced a hate crime. The reality is there are people up and down the country who have lived with for years and are continuing to live with attacks based on their race or their sexuality or their ethnicity. And I can't see why you wouldn't be supporting more measures to record and take action against this.
Right, before I bring Nick in, sorry, this is really going to be brief, just so you, because you seem to think that I'm making up that this is something. So let me just reference the College of Policing, their hate crime operational guidance. For recording purposes, the perception of the victim or any other person is the defining factor in determining whether an incident is a hate incident or in recognising the hostility element of a hate crime. The victim does not have to justify or provide evidence of their belief, and police officers or staff should not directly challenge this perception. Evidence of the hostility is not required for an incident or crime to be recorded as a hate crime or hate incident. That sums up my point.
I just feel that all we need is a sense of proportion. Cressida Dick herself said,
Commissioner of the Metropolitan
Commissioner of the Met, that resources are scarce and she would prefer us to look into not hate crimes necessarily, online crimes, but violent crimes that are actually plaguing the streets. But I do think it's really important, given what Trevor said, and you know, the abuse of women and attacks on women and minorities in the past, that these things are reported, but not necessarily given, you know, longer jail sentences and consume more resources than violent crimes.
Well, I think we should just take a little step back from the, let's call it the emotion that surrounds this, because I think there are practical issues here, which I don't think we have a kind of a collective view about in our society. So, for example, the 103,000 or thereabouts hate crimes includes all sorts of things. It includes online messages, it includes shouting at people in the street, and it also includes people smashing in your windows. I wonder if in reality we should bracket all those things together. Now that seems to me a kind of useful discussion to have, rather than, you know, is it real and all that. We know that there are real things happening of all this kind. The question is, how do we respond to it?
Leave it there. Thanks, Trevor. It's not every day you get the chance to have a snap with royalty. So when it happens, you've got to make the most of it. And Lindsay Kelly did just that when she bagged herself a pic with Prince Harry at the launch of the UK's new Invictus Games team earlier this week. But the RAF veteran got herself into a right royal palaver when she went to put her arm around the Duke of Sussex and accidentally touched his bottom. Rather than keep calm and carrying on, Lindsay made the most of her VIP access and gave the prince a cheeky squeeze.
You have to look like you like him. You have to smile, guys. Here we go, go.
It's almost in my pocket.
It's there.
Hey!
Thank you.
I didn't even notice until you said it. Oh,
but Harry was just thankful it wasn't his crown jewels. Lindsay Kelly, you are our straight toucher of the week. I'm sorry. You know,
you're always touching Harry.
Send me to prison. I'm sometimes pinch men's bottoms.
When did you last pinch a stranger's bottom?
Not a stranger.
Well, whose bottom did you last pinch?
I'm not telling you.
Well, I want to know.
But what I think we do have
bottom?
a huge double standard, which is I think women can do it now and men can't. That's all we've got time for this week. But don't forget, you can join in the debate. Just search for The Pledge on Twitter. And the show's also available as a podcast. Subscribe using Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whichever app you prefer. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.